All right, John. So in 2016, at a rally in Vegas, Michael Sanford walked up to a police officer near the stage, pretended to ask for Trump's autograph, and then grabbed for the officer's gun. This gun jammed in the holster, and he was tackled immediately. He admitted he came to kill Trump, and yet he only served about a year in prison. So, with your experience, we just want to find out a couple of things on how you would have handled it. How did he even get that close?
I mean, they should have never got that close. So it's inexperience. I don't believe if they are tier one guys, in my opinion, they're really screwing up, or somebody in the deep state is telling them to let them through somewhere down the line. They're usually inside jobs when something like that happens, whether it's mob related, whether it's government related, but somebody's giving somebody information to be able to get that close.
John, would you call this a major security breach or just a lucky save because that holster held?
No, a major security breach because a holster held is, irrelevant. They shouldn't be getting this close, and it's a major screw up.
Some people say this kind of access almost looks like an inside job. You think it was just sloppy planning or something deeper?
No, I think it's definitely something deeper. I don't believe in coincidences, especially when it's President Trump or any president, but especially President Trump because of the insane hatred for him.
Now, you're an organized crime, right? This guy only got 12 months for something this serious. I mean, I know you guys got guys that went for years for petty theft or, money laundering. I mean, how does this guy only get 12 months and then sent back to Britain?
It doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's insane that somebody they could get 12 months. People are getting that for infractions for driving. It's amazing. I mean, I don't know what judge he went in front of, and I don't know what his exact charges were, but anything that related to come after a president, I mean, it should be a minimum of a 10-year sentence. So I'm not really understanding how they can give this guy a year and send him back to Britain.
Now, if you had been charged that day, what's the one thing you would have changed to prevent this?
Well, yeah, like any security detail, you have a perimeter that's set up, and that perimeter somehow got breached. So, there has to be accountability for how they're breaching the perimeter that way. Also, how are they getting in the first place without being wounded and checked, for any kind of explosive besides handguns.
Let's fast forward to 2024, Butler, Pennsylvania. Trump is on stage at a rally when Thomas Matthew Crooks climbs onto a rooftop 150 yards away and opens fire. Trump is hit in the ear, a rally goer is killed, and two others are badly wounded before Secret Service snipers kill the shooter. We gotta ask, how does a shooter even get rooftop access with a clear line of sight at a presidential rally?
Impossible. That's my first answer to that. It's impossible. And why I'm saying that is because, yes, he had third tier Secret Service agents and fourth tier inexperienced people that were working from 100%. The ex-president, Biden, gave him that kind of security that weren't qualified to be watching the president, especially after threat assessments against them. But back to the deep state, guys like Comey that are putting signs in the sand with bullets. These guys, somewhere along the line, somebody helped an inexperienced guy that was obviously trained by somebody to be able to get inside a perimeter. But once you enter a perimeter, and I've talked about this on a show I did in Italy, prior to it happening, actually, I said that was going to happen. Once he gets into that perimeter, which is difficult enough, that means you had help. But you must have extreme help to get, once you're inside the perimeter, to get to a location inside the perimeter now and get to a rooftop without anybody. These are simple checks. So when before he goes on that stage, there's simple checks. They circle a perimeter out and then they watch it. They put men there and security, and there's no way to get on higher ground like that without help from somebody seriously embedded in the government.
So, a lot of locals said they saw him roaming around, even taking measurements. and police took pictures beforehand, and they actually send it via text message to each other. How does something like that not even set off alarms?
It's supposed to set off alarms. And I think that, somewhere down the line, again, they were told to stand down. The police, they ignored them. The police, I guess, were they're not running the security there. They're the local police, but they're running the security is the Secret Service, obviously, and, whoever else is with the Secret Service there. But again, this is impossible. This is stuff that just doesn't happen unless it's intentional.
People reported him climbing up to the roof. Why was that not even acted on before the shooting started?
They should immediately have checked it. There should have been security up on the roof already. The Secret Service should have been up there. There should have been drones above. There should have been dogs. I can go on. It was a very simple thing like this. Just one shot up in the air stops everything. And that's amateur hour to do that. But if that's necessary to save lives, save the president's lives, of course, that's what should have been done.
Now, I don't know if you've seen the video or not, but the sniper, you can tell that he hesitated. He had eyes on him, but hesitated. In your view, was that hesitation on a training issue? Or do you think he got something in the ear that said, don't shoot? Or what do you think about that?
I don't think he was a lone shooter, just like Oswald, I don't believe, obviously, was a lone shooter with Kennedy. And it took years of technology to prove that. I think that he was placed there, he was trained there, and he was going to be killed one way or another. And he's just a lamb that they put out there, like they did with Oswald. I says, and somebody said something to him, possibly, yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I'll ask that question again. The sniper on the roof that shot him, if you see the video, he hesitated before he shot the sniper that was going to kill the president. Do you think that he hesitated for a reason, or do you think that he got something that was told him to stand down, or what do you think that went through that sniper's head? Because he should have took that shot immediately, but he hesitated before he took the shot.
I think he was told by somebody to hold that shot. They wanted the president to be killed, and somebody sent that order out to him. And with the excuse, I don't know what excuse you can have, because it should be immediate shot. There is no getting a green light. If you see somebody aiming a weapon at anybody in that vicinity, let alone the president, he should have been taken out immediately.
Some critics online point out that certain agents on the ground look untrained, even saying they were DEI hires. You saw that girl where they were hauling the president out. She had the gun everywhere. Do you think there's truth in that, or you think it's just bad staffing and planning, or do you think they were placed there on purpose on that particular day?
100%. I believe they were placed there on purpose. They weren't qualified, nowhere near qualified. The area should have been secure hours prior to him getting on that stage. Like I said, I think this was all done intentionally by somebody who was in control in the deep state.
When you add all this up, ignored messages, missing warnings, missing alerts, hesitation, does this look like sheer incompetence, or do you think it's something more deliberate? I mean, I know you said that you think it's an inside job, but elaborate a little bit more on that. I mean, it looks so much like it's an inside job.
This is deliberate. And again, I said this was going to happen prior to it happening, because take everything that led up to that, prior to that, everything they did to the president to stop him from running, everything they did to him and his family. This isn't one thing or two things. They just continued to go after him nonstop when they couldn't stop him. Any other human being, forget about President Trump as the president, as a human being, nobody would have the fortitude, the strength, the desire to continue. They tried everything to beat him down. When that didn't work, I was the first guy that came out and said, they're going to try to kill him. This is no doubt, this is the next step. So this was no surprise to me that they tried to kill him.
You think Trump knows? Do you think Trump has some kind of inclination and saying to himself, there's got to be people on the inside who know about this or who are trying to kill me?
2,000% President Trump knows they're trying to kill him. But I'm going to tell you, like I tell everybody, that man has an unbelievable, I don't know if it's God's will, but even when that shot was fired, or those several shots were fired, fireman was killed, other people were injured. And President Trump was, by the luck of God, was grazed in the ear slightly, a slight movement, or he'd be dead also. But he got right back up. And you know, as a veteran, that's either in you or not. And President Trump jumped right back up. Somebody else would have cowered. That's just natural, without anything being rehearsed. The guy is an incredible leader, an incredible human being. God's, I just believe, put him here for a purpose, and he's alive because of God.
You think it was luck that day, or do you think, he was failed at every level of protection?
He was failed at every level of protection. It wasn't lucky. It was just God's will, like I said. I don't believe that there was any kind of luck. They set everything up possibly to have him killed and assassinated, and it failed.
And, we got to jump to scenario number 3. This is like the third assassination attempt now. And this is at West Palm Beach, September 15, 2024. Let me set up the scene. There's a Florida golf course incident. A man named Ryan Wesley Ruth was found hiding in the bushes with a rifle, waiting for Trump while he golfed. Secret Service spotted him, fired shots, and he fled before being caught. After the incident here, how does someone with a rifle get close enough to hide in the bushes at a former president's golf course? How does that even happen, knowing that this happened not too long ago?
Again, after the first attempt, I said they would try a second. And when I said that, again, these are perimeters that should be watched. First, with this paparazzi out there, they already know that location. Everybody's aware of that location. That's first. Second, that shooter also was moving around out of the country, in the country. He was being trained somewhere outside this country. They had a scope on him prior to this. So who's training these guys? Who's paying for these guys? Where are they getting the information on when to come in and why? Forget about, unexperienced details, Secret Service. Why aren't they checking this perimeter? Where is it the drones? Where are the dogs? Where is security around? There's a perimeter set up on anybody, not just the president. Where is this perimeter? This is not even a little bit of saying it's practical that they're screwing up to this extent. This is all intentionally being done by somebody that's running the assassination attempts on the president. Along with, after this, I said, this is just the beginning that I ran with. And I said this prior, that Iran will put a team out, especially watching this. And there's trillions and trillions of dollars involved around the world that they wanted him to be killed.
Now, with this particular situation, you think it was a surveillance failure or just impossible to cover every inch of this property?
You don't have to cover every inch of a property. When you do security detail, I've done security on, a lot of street guys. It's not that difficult, really. There's a playbook that you'll go by. And, it is very simple. And they know what that playbook is. It's step by step. It's the day before they should be looking to make sure there's nobody setting up the day before. Hours before, you make sure you have, besides the perimeter, you have drones. Besides the drones, you have dogs. Besides the dogs, you have, intermediate clockwork where they're walking different areas. But there's the trouble spots that they know of in that location. That's one of them. That was a spot they already knew that paparazzi was at, and there was all kinds of cameramen. So, that's one of the first locations they would watch.
And what do you think as far as, sloppiness? Do you think, honestly, if this is a sloppiness job, or do you think there's a chance that someone helped him get that close? From your experience, the Pal Castellado hit, that wasn't just sloppiness. That was set up, and, it was somebody, obviously it was inside help. Similar to that, with your experience, you have to look at this from the outside and say, hey, there's no way this just randomly happened.
There is no random when it comes to a hit. It doesn't matter who that person is you're trying to hit. You do your homework on him, you clock him, you watch his routines, you check out where the routines are, you see where the weaknesses are of those routines. You send teams. It's not one person. You need help. So somebody's helping these guys. Somebody's helping them do their homework. They didn't just wake up out of bed and say, oh, let me go to the golf course today. And I happen to be lucky and get to the right location. And then when I get to that location, I happen to get to a location inside that location. These are, billion to one odds of this even going on. It's ridiculous. It's insulting for anybody to say this is just bad police work or Secret Service or not qualified. Yeah, they're not qualified. They're put there intentionally because they're not qualified. On top of the help they're getting to try to kill the president.
Now, to be fair, Secret Service fired on him, but yet he still ran before being caught. Does that raise questions about the immediate response? I mean, how do you not catch the guy that's inside the perimeter?
Well, again, they're inside the perimeter. Where's the local police around the event that there's nobody at, where he's golfing? He's a regular at that location. No different than the last shooter. Same thing. After he was shot and killed, he was cremated immediately. These things are, there's something definitely very wrong with the way they handle on this stuff.
And how is it possible that we have 4 or 5 presidents before Trump, yet we don't have like a single assassination attempt? All of a sudden, Trump comes on board and you have 3 different assassination attempts.
Well, you have everybody, you had these global world leaders around the world that were involved with our deep state that had an agenda. And, this global is really saying communism, dictatorship, world dictatorship. That's what they were looking for. He ruined their plans. God helped him ruin their plans. And, you've seen this coming. Like I said, there was too much that they did to the president with these ridiculous cases, with these impeachment attempts, one thing after another, with the collusion conspiracy with, people like Fannie Willis and Nathan Wade going to the White House prior to even in charging President Trump on the last ridiculous case. These are all conspiracies. These are, with the civil rights, depriving civil rights under the color of law. And it says anybody that sees this, what they're doing, they use the badge, they use their position to go after him, indict him, abuse the Constitution.
If you were running security that day, what's the one measure you would put in place to stop this earlier?
Would have had a team out there the day before, he's going there, or even several days before, to the day before, 2 hours before. And the first place you go is higher ground. So that's the first place. The second place you go is to anywhere that there's brush where they can, someone can hide. And you have dogs. And that's one of the other reasons you have, you have dogs there also. So, and there's everything and anything they did. There was camera. There should have been camera work around. There was nothing.
Looking at all 3 attempts together, Vegas, Butler, and Florida, what's the one pattern you see? What does it say about the way Trump is being protected?
Saying that they're definitely giving inside help. And like I said, any kind of hit, you have to have knowledge prior to going. You don't just wake up one morning and say, I want to get this guy, without knowing where he goes, what he does, what his schedule is, and who's giving that information. It's got to be somebody pretty close that's giving up that kind of information.
Moving forward, what are the chances of you think this is going to repeat itself, history repeating itself? What do you think, or how do you think the next one will happen?
I think, I've discussed this, and me discussed this off camera. I think if I was running his security detail, I'd find the 10 most, the places he goes the most, 10 or 15 places. And I would look at security cameras for the last month prior, 30 days out till now, and see if there was any kind of anybody trying to clock him, watch him, surveil him. If there's anything that's going on that doesn't look right. And then I'd look at his schedule from today for the next 6 months and see where he's going the next 6 months. And then, repeat what I just said with the places that he's going within the next 6 months, because I don't think they're through. I think that there's going to be other attempts. We know that Iran leadership wanted to kill him. I don't think that's changed. And the deep state, these guys have a lot to lose because of the knowledge he has on them.
Back in 2016 in Vegas, this guy, Michael Sanford, he walked up to the police officer and talked up a conversation. How much security do you think they should have in between these police officers and the people that are attending the rally?
Like most security, you should have layers. So if you get through the first layer, you got to get through a second and third layer. But you should have at least 3 layers to get to the president. That's first. Second, there should be no conversation when you get that close. If that's your first tier of security, and you're talking it up with him, but you're nowhere near the president. That's one thing. But when you get past the first, second, now you're at the third tier, right in front of the president. That's impossible. Should be no conversation, because even if that man didn't mean any harm himself, he's taking your eyes off of somebody else that possibly might be trying to hurt the president, unrelated to him. If he just happened to be a nice guy having a conversation, you can't. Your sole focus is to watch the crowd and make sure nobody goes near that president.
How do agencies like the FBI and Secret Service spot these threats before they happen? I mean, is there a real way to do a preemptive threat assessment, profiling behavior, warning signs, or background checks? I mean, does it actually work, or do you think that could be done?
100% that could be done. And if you're, especially in this day and age, technology, whoever flew in, whoever came on a bus, whoever came on a train, they look at profiles of anybody that's fits that, position, that role where they might try to hurt the president, kill the president. And besides that, you have local police. You ask who's in that area. You check out movement. That's what their jobs are. Their jobs are to secure that situation prior. There should be no situation if they're doing their job properly. I says, and even if they get to that location, they should never be able to get inside a perimeter. And then once inside a perimeter, it should be impossible. How are they getting where they need to be to take that shot? That's, these are not major screw-ups. These are major corruption and major help to assassinate him.
And with Butler, it just seems like there are so many red flags. I mean, you had news that CNN was already set up, and you had other sites saying that this kid was hired by Iran or had some kind of influence from Iran. And talk to us a little bit about that. How much influence did Iran have on this hit? And media stations like CNN was already set up or at this area.
You go back to January 6th. I was there. They had, Pelosi had, media there, prior. She denied National Guard prior. These are all things that are intent. These are not by accident, no different than here. This stuff is set up prior. Somehow, these people are getting knowledge. And how do you get knowledge of something as underhanded as that? And it's so treasonous to talk about, killing our president. I don't care if you like the president or not. How do you go and want to kill the president of America, the United States of America, President Trump? But again, there's a telltale, like most things, they usually tip their mitt somewhere to know that something's going to happen. And they did it too often. They've tried everything financially, personal, business-wise. They attacked them at every location, nonstop, that you knew this was coming. They attacked people like Peter Navarro, put him in prison. Before that, General Flynn, Roger Stone. And there's a list that they attacked. This is third world, tactics. No different than third world tactics. The tactics also go as far as trying to kill the president. It's no surprise.
How much protection do you think that, people like President Trump should have compared to what we're seeing? I mean, because we're one of the most powerful countries on the planet. And to have this many assassination attempts on a sitting president who's, most powerful man in the world, how does that look on America?
Well, the countries know just like what I'm saying, they're knowledgeable. Presidents of other countries, leaders of other countries, whether Putin, El Salvador, or doesn't matter how big or small the country is, they understand what happened. I mean, they can, try to bullshit the public that don't know any better. But guys like myself that are around the world, or, guys that are trained in the military, they're snipers, they understand what happened here. I mean, there's no fooling everybody. You can fool the layman, but anybody in this business, in this world, they understand, exactly what they did and trying to do.
And it brings me back to Frank Cali. Frank Cali was shot and killed. And just to imagine that a mob boss like that had he didn't have that protection around his house where 24/7. He was shot and killed easily because he stepped out of his house. So it kind of reminds me of, the protection that goes around some of these big guys, the lack of protection.
Well, when I was at Mar-a-Lago, I knew, and I made several comments to a lot of people about the security wasn't where it should be. I seen it was weak. I knew that, The security was bad at that time. But now that he's president, I believe his security is strong. And he did circle himself with the right people at this point. But at that point, he didn't have control over his security as much as he wanted to have. They gave him those kind of Secret Service and security at that time. He has his own private security and he has Secret Service. But the people they gave him at the time were definitely not qualified. That was intentional. No different than any other country when you see a president or a political person be assassinated. When you go back to Frank Cali, that could happen to anybody. He made the mistake of walking out of his house unarmed, number one. Two, he knew the guy, so he felt comfortable. And he should have just made a phone call. It's only his car. He bumped his car. He should have made a phone call, called a couple of his guys and say, come to the house. There's a little situation here, and that's it. But he didn't choose to do that. Frank was kind of a soft-spoken, easygoing guy. He wasn't a violent gangster. So a violent gangster would have probably either came out, not probably, he would have came out himself with a gun if he was coming out, or he would have made that phone call. He wouldn't react the same way as Frank. Frank didn't have the belief, because he wasn't violent, to go out and think that somebody was going to ring his bell, especially somebody he knows, to shoot him.
What do you think moving forward? Do you think, I know this is going to be a controversial question, but do you think there are double agents in the Secret Service now? Even with the president's elite service and Secret Service's elite, but do you think there are double agents within the government that are plotting against him?
I think, well, I don't think that's, a bad question. I think it's a good question. I think that you're always going to have that. It's going to be very hard to have people that are loyal to this country. You have government officials right now that swore to the Constitution of this country and the constituents of this country that talk about other countries over our country. So they should, that should be an immediate firing of that position. They got to change the laws. If they're talking about protecting another country, their homeland, or wherever their family's from over this country, they should be out of office. But you have that, this is kind of pretty verbal these days. It's incredible that it's going on, that they're talking about other countries over our own country, or flying flags of other countries inside the Capitol.
What do you think? Do you think there's going to be another assassination attempt on his life? Do you think it's pretty much done, quieted down, or do you think there's going to be something else coming up?
I'm always leery that there'll be something else coming up. They hate him. They know 3/4 of this country love him. They can't change those numbers. They've played around with the elections, and they got caught doing that now too. So it's insulting. It's racist, actually, what the Democratic, I call Democrat/Communist Party, tries to insult the Black community, and basically saying they're too dumb to get identification to vote, or that they're too lazy. They make I don't know how people don't see this and take this out, how insulting it is to say something as stupid as that they're not intelligent enough, or they're too lazy, they're too stupid to get identification to be able to vote. We got identification for everything. To go to the doctors, to go drive a car, to go into a location, into a movies, to travel, to you think about it, to get medical care anywhere. You have to show identification. This is ridiculous. Unless you're completely homebound and you can't get to a store ever, then you should be able to go vote. And they should do paper ballots without these machines anymore. They can be hacked into, they're abused. People are making trillions of dollars. And in my opinion, guys like George Soros need to get locked up for the violence he causes, the money he's paying. And they need to follow that money trail and find out who's causing this.
And I know we're talking about assassinations, but we also want to just kind of reflect on Italians and Trump and Republicans. They seem to lean more towards Republicans, Italians. Give us a little insight, on the mob and how they lean towards Republicans versus Democrats, and kind of like the political stance.
I don't know if it's Republican, because the Democratic Party before was a middle of the road party. It was about the families also. So it was, you had a lot of back and forth. But now the Democratic Party is a communist party. They're not using that word, but it's a communist party, right? They're worried about illegal immigrants coming in, and they're not worried about the American citizen or veterans. They're not worried about the kids that are being molested and kidnapped. They're not worried about the women that are coming in and being prostituted, raped, killed. They're not worried about all the victims' families by allowing these illegals to come in the country. So I think that the Republican Party became the the party of families. Of God, of church, of the working class people, of the things that most Americans are looking for. They leave their country for a better opportunity to come here. They're not looking for socialism or communism. People don't want people to tell them like when you could go to the bathroom, when you could go get medical care, when you can eat, how much you can eat, where you got to eat, what time you got to go to bed. This is what the communist community wants, and this is what this Democratic Party became. The party of the government will tell you when you can get a vaccine. They could tell you when it's your body, your choice. We'll tell you when it's your body, your choice. So it's laughable of what they have done to this country, and they're lost. I mean and I hate using Democratic Party for them now. They're a communist party. They should change their name to what they are.
Now you're Albanian. What do Albanians think about the political climate here in the U.S. right now?
Albania was a communist country. So we've only been out of communism about 40 years. So I know exactly what communism is. I watched my family suffer in Albania. I know what that looks like. I lived in Cuba. I know what it looks like. I lived in Venezuela. I know what it looks like. And I know the suffering of the people in those countries. So anybody that's buying into communism or socialism, it doesn't work anywhere. And when the government is telling you what to do, look what the government's doing now. We're supposed to be a republic. People like Pelosi or Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren, they got hundreds of millions of dollars from inside trading. They can say what they want. How you get this kind of money with your salaries of $100,000 a year? This is a joke. AOC was penniless. She's got all kinds of money. They all got all kinds of money. We've become a third world country. They need to be prosecuted, just like they would prosecute you, me, or anybody else. Why are they not being prosecuted? They got to be prosecuted so people have the belief that this country's is on a fair system, a legal system. Not only the government and the wealthy, but everybody has a fair justice system.
And I want to pivot over to the drug crisis. I mean, especially with Venezuela right now. Trump is sending ships over there to try to fight this drug crisis. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, trying to stop the drugs flowing in from other countries to the United States.
Being a street guy, I understand, again, the drug industry, understand the cartels, understand the mafia. And I understand I lost my daughter 3 years ago last week. Yesterday, I happened to be at the Black Poster Project, St. Patrick's Cathedral. Is DA agent that runs the combating the drug war with fentanyl, with China, with Mexico, and around the world, and countries like Venezuela. So I know the death toll. I know that they've combated at 25% of less deaths this past year under President Trump than before. He saved approximately 50,000 lives this past year. So I know the suffering I have, and the families are suffering from drugs. This isn't the drugs of the 70s, 60s, or the 80s, where it's drugs and you shouldn't do it, like I shouldn't. You go to jail for it like I did. But now these drugs are killing. Every time somebody uses something recreationally, they're dying. Every time somebody wants to smoke weed, they're putting fentanyl in it. They're not asking for it, so they're murdering them. So I believe in what President Trump's doing, and as a father and a grandfather, you want to see you want to see toughness on drugs.
Looking at it, as an American, as a citizen, it's almost like it's impossible to stop the flow of drugs. It's coming from every aspect of the country. I mean, every corner of the country. It's coming from China. It's coming from Mexico. It's coming from Colombia. How can we battle and control the borders to prevent this from happening?
Well, first off, you can control it because they control it in Dubai. They control it in China. They don't do it in those countries. They might sell it to bring it into these countries, but the laws are very strict. There's death penalties. There's life sentences. So they should do the same thing here. If you're selling something like fentanyl, where you're killing a lot of people, you should face life sentences and death penalties. You're destroying generations of lives. As a young guy, you're not thinking about that. You're for whatever reason. But if I wouldn't see a lot of these people here, if you send them to Dubai, they won't play around because they know what will happen in Dubai. Once our laws and some of the restrictions, and also you have to use the border and you have to use tariffs like the president's using. I have to use the National Guard. You have to press these other countries. If the drug flow continues, make them fight on their side of the border. But they're complacent, a lot of these countries like Mexico and China.
How do you feel about legalizing a lot of this stuff? I mean, marijuana is being legalized, and you have open centers here that you can buy marijuana and smoke marijuana legally, especially in New Jersey. How do you feel about legalizing this? Will that prevent a lot of this flow from drugs?
No, legalizing marijuana, I don't have a problem with. I think that's fine. To me, I think it's better than drinking, even though I'm not a pot smoker. I don't smoke, but drinking I think is worse for you. But legalizing any other kind of drug, no, I'm totally against it, especially hard drugs, like whether it's cocaine, heroin, fentanyl. I know they got these drug-free zones. They don't work. All they're doing is giving up on kids and saying you're never going to have a life. Just go here and die until you finish getting high. Nobody leaves a bar to go to a drug-free zone. It's ridiculous. If you're getting high, you're not going to go to a drug-free zone. And if you do, and it's closed certain hours, then that's where the drug dealers manipulate whoever's there, and you're continuing the criminal enterprise.
And from your experience, we're going back because you spend a lot of time with the mob. Drugs was a big no-no for Paul Castellano. Paul Castellano looked down on his crews and his people selling drugs. Right now, currently, what do you think about mob selling drugs within their ranks? I mean, do you think what's your thoughts on that?
Well, it was supposed to be a death sentence. If you were moving drugs and you got caught with it, and you brought pressure into a family. But Paul Castellano was no different than anybody else. He said he was against it, but he had people like Patsy Conti that owned all the key foods. It was a big heroin mover. He'd give him an envelope every year. So he would tell him it was from the key food supermarket business. And, he'd be giving him a couple $1 million a year. So, this is ridiculous. There's so much money in it that it's very hard for them to turn that away. This day and age, technology is going after everybody that's selling that. I don't know what the mob's doing as far as drugs these days. I know individuals on the behind closed doors are always going to sell drugs. As a family, I'm not sure what they're doing with their family.
What do you think the future of the drugs is now? I mean, do you think it's going to continue? It's going to exploit future generations, or do you think this new generation is a little bit smarter, with being educated versus drug dealing?
I think the new generation is smarter, but very naive. Smarter technology-wise, but street smart, no. I think they grew up in a soft. It's not think. I know they grew up a lot softer than generations before because of the technology era. They're not out in the street the same way as kids were before. Some of it's good, some's bad, because kids before are out in the street. They got very street smart. They're playing sports, but at the same time, they get an education in the street. Now the kids are behind a computer and they're very intelligent. They know how to get things quickly through the mail, through communications. So I think the drug situation is always going to get worse, and there's too much money in it that it's ever going to stop. You have to just keep the pressure on it, and it's an ongoing battle.